Hey Insider, we got a special guest with us today who've recently graduated from our flagship course called LMA. And he'll be sharing with you in terms of his journey on board, how he found this experience and everything in between. So just want to say it's a pleasure to have you with us today. Let's just start with the introductory question, Chuck. What's your name, where you're currently based, and what you currently do in terms of occupation?
Okay. My name is Chuck Encarnacion. I'm originally from the Philippines. I migrated to the US 2002, and I'm a renewable energy entrepreneur. I develop my own solar energy storage and bioenergy projects, package it, and make it ready for investors.
Wow. So walk us through the story, Chuck, in terms of before coming across LMA, if you don't mind sharing, what were some of the, inner problems you were experiencing in your life, or perhaps behaviors that wasn't serving you well? And yeah, why did it make you feel like you was wanting to change in that moment?
Sure. I went through three cycles in my life. And basically, I've gone to three business models from being an entrepreneur to having my own business. I succeeded and failed in those three cycles. And so I see myself on my fourth cycle. So that's my number one, I think, to finally break through and get to where I'm aiming to be. And then secondly, on a personal level, 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with general anxiety disorder. So this was an actual medical condition. I actually went to therapy and medication for it for a couple of years. I'm very thankful that through the professional help, I was able to get through it. But remnants of that trauma and remnants of that behavior still persist. And so out of the 10 people I was looking at YouTube,
Mm.
I think, Tim, you came across as the most sincere. And I said, you know what? I think I can be part of this community. I like what Tim is saying. It had a nice blend of compassion, but also more importantly, or equally important, is the science behind the brain.
Mm.
Your cognitive mind works, how your emotions work. And so I joined LMA, and it's been great ever since. I'm I'm halfway through. I know I'm 75% through my goals, and so what I've learned in LMA through the coaching, through the free inputs to the YouTubes, have been great.
It's awesome to hear. So when you came across LMA, what sort of inner work were you wanting to do? What sort of behaviors were you wanting to get rid of, or inner blocks that you're wanting to free?
Okay. So when I got to, so in 2019, there was a layoff in the company. Company wasn't able to get the investment. And so I found myself having to be an independent consultant and entrepreneur again. And the biggest block, to borrow your phrase, Tim, is that bodyguard.
Mm.
You've been through this before, buddy, and you have failed three times.
Right.
And so I told my wife, okay, this is what I'm going to do. 30 hours a day, I'll look for a job. 30 hours a day, I'll launch my own independent consultancy. Let's see what happens. And it has been a battle. So the second is how to connect to my future self.
Mm.
Right. One of the things you learn in LMA is that you don't, because you have to be first rich within to become rich without, or you have to connect to your future self. And I think, Tim, I remember what you said when you launched LMA or Success Insider. You said you worked day and night. You were devoted to it. You had a job at that time, I believe, when you
Yeah.
started. And so that inspired me. I said, look at this guy. His dad left him when he was young. His mom had to take care of him. He went through drugs. I'll tell you what. Let me use that as an inspirational story. And so yeah, so that's been the battle. The battle really has been able to connect with the future self, to live in that state of abundance, in that beautiful state. And I've come to realize this: the success isn't the destination. The success is being in that beautiful state when things are not beautiful.
Mm,
If you can do that, then you've succeeded.
love
And
it.
that's one of the key things I've learned in LMA.
Wow. So you're saying when you came across LMA, you was wanting to pretty much better manage your survival brain because
Yes.
you had experienced failures in the past and you were, hearing some of the voices of
Yes.
doubts or whatever it may be. Okay. So when you had that opportunity to enroll in LMA for the first time, if you were to be honest, what doubts did you actually have about the course itself? Because it is an investment that you're making. So what fears did you have? What doubts did you have about LMA? And what ended up putting that to aside for you because you did take that leap of faith forwards?
My first fear was, oh, this is a money scam. $350, you're not getting that back. And so the money transaction was the first fear. So, okay, let's put this on my credit card. Let's see what happens. And then lo and behold, I didn't get scammed. It went through, and
Right.
that was great. There was also one module, I think, which I tried to purchase, and then I asked for a refund, and I actually got the refund. And so I said, wow, these guys are honest. And so that was the first barrier, really, is the honesty in the money transaction. And
Right.
then I went through the LMA. I had to wake up at 5:30 a.m. on a Sunday. That's okay. And wow, so it's really a nice community. And then lastly, really was the follow-up. I think you guys have a great follow-up. I actually joined two LMAs back in 2019. So yeah, so I think those were the three things.
Yeah, I have heard that you've been a member since 2019, which is wow. I can't fault your commitment.
Yes.
That's amazing. So
I have no choice but to commit.
yeah, I suppose I'm curious to know why, you know, have you been part of this community for, however many years that is? Why have you decided to continue with, revisiting LMA and so forth?
To be honest, it's because of the follow-up. It's because of the emails. And secondly, it's because of the personal touch. I lately I actually enrolled in the coaching,
Mm.
and shout out to Toma. I think Toma is doing a fantastic job. I said, Toma, your number one job is to make sure to tell me if I'm crazy or not. That's your number one job.
Yeah.
Your second job is to, just to be there for me to hash out some key ideas I need
Mm.
for the next 2 weeks. And so really it's the follow-up program, it's the community.
Mm.
It's my goal to get into one of the WCA workshops eventually, hopefully by March.
Hmm.
And so really it's just a progression. To be honest, I'm not a Facebook person, and so I'm not in the Facebook group, but I stay in touch through the YouTubes, through the emails, and through the various workshops.
Okay, nice. So prior to LMA, have you have done a lot of personal development or were you relatively new to it? Whereabouts were you in terms of skill level?
Oh, as mentioned earlier, I was following maybe 10 people on YouTube. Uh, I do a lot of personal development. My background actually is in psychology.
Oh, nice.
In my previous life 20 years ago, I was actually a counselor and a social worker, community developer in the Philippines.
Nice.
And so, yeah, so I do a lot of a lot of personal development things.
Okay, nice. So you was pretty well versed in personal growth. Okay, so you ended up going through LMA and now you've graduated and you've been for, a couple times, as you say. So having now gone through it and having made that decision to go through it, what's made you feel the happiest about having experienced LMA in your life?
You know, when I got laid off 2019, it was, it's been hard, but I'm 75% there. I have two clients. I'm closing my third project. If I do that, I'll be okay. So I think really I've had somebody with me in the journey.
Mm,
And, you know, one of the things that LMA emphasizes is to be part of a support community,
mm,
and to be, you don't win alone. And I think that's what I liked about it. I feel that I'm part of a community. And of course, I have my own professional support system. But yeah, so just being part of that makes me feel really good.
okay, nice. Which week of LMA, just or even the lesson really stood out to you the most and actually benefited your life the most?
Funny, it starts with the end. You mentioned, Tim, you have to be open to selling. Remember that?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then you said entrepreneurship is the only way out. So let's work backwards. Spoiler alert,
Yeah,
that's the
yeah.
last thing of the LMA. But if I work myself backwards, yeah, that is true. I mean, I've applied for 60 jobs. I've been turned down. So my path right now is to keep going forward in my business. And then the second thing about LMA is that you need to have skills. You have to be world class in something,
Mm,
and you have to put in the hard work. My first workshop, really, Tim, was the rapid transformation process.
yep.
Yeah, so that was actually my first exposure, that workshop that you
Yeah.
gave. And I had a hard time connecting with my future self.
Mm,
And I realized that I can only connect with my future self if I put in the hard damn work.
mm,
It's not some magical BS you tell yourself. Put in the work, develop the skills, and then suddenly you start to quiet that bodyguard. And your most recent email on Reflection Sunday was the RAS,
mm,
and how you can actually reprogram the RAS.
mm.
So I found out that if I focus on the skills, on where I need to be, and do the hard work, my RAS stops from survival mode to abundance mode.
Yeah.
And so, but this has to be done every week.
Yeah. Love
So
it.
last night I slept 2 hours working on a proposal. I went through contract negotiations with a client back in Monday.
Mm,
After sleeping just 3 hours, 4 hours the past 3 days,
wow.
that's when I feel good.
Wow.
And so yeah, so really the developing that skills, and going through that process, and connecting with the future self through that method.
Really appreciate that. And I also really appreciate, I always forget when I'm writing those emails, somebody's actually reading it. Because I never hear back, I didn't see the emails normally. So no,
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear you actually reading them and should definitely continue with those emails. All right. So final question, Chuck. Final question. Um, what having now gone through this journey and having, having gone through LMA and all the inner work, what advice would you give to somebody who's watching this video, considering joining LMA right now, but they're kind of stuck in the limbo, not sure whether or not they should or don't? What advice would you give to this person who's watching this video right now?
My first advice is look at what your goal in life is.
Mm,
If you're at the stage, you're just really going through the motions, you don't have any ambitions, you don't really have any goals, don't do it. Unless you've got money to burn, sure, why not? It's a feel good thing. But if you have a certain goals,
mm,
if you want to launch a business, if you want to get promoted at work, if you want to get to another level with your relationships, with your family, with your friends, you're definitely going to learn a few things. And what's nice about LMA is in the modules, in the modules and the process, there are specific things that will help you. You don't need everything. You just need to pick out the specific things that will help you. And boy, that's going to be a very good, uh, you know help in where you want to go.